that's just where it is, right? So thanks so much. I know we had to reschedule this. I had a little family emergency going on the week that we were supposed to, and Andrew was so gracious to reschedule. So thank you so much. This is a topic that's I'm learning a ton about, and every time I learn more, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where it's at. This is where it's at. In the distance learning playbook, this is a 1 chapter. And I was super excited that I was able to do a 2-dayer on teacher clarity with Doug Fisher. And it was just so awesome. So I would like to just share with you a few things that I learned on it. I'll just go. So a couple different things that we're going to learn about today. 2 things in this first 20 minutes. 1, I'm learning how to increase clarity in distance learning. And I'm learning how about connecting learning intentions and success criteria. Isn't that kind of funny that this is my learning intention slide and we're talking about learning intentions and success criteria? So I thought that was kind of funny. It's kind of that like that metacognition, right? So anyway, all right. So I recycled some slides from Amy and Kristen because they're awesome. And I just want to circle back to some of the engagement things that we did. And I have used this slide now in almost everything that I'm doing because, well, I love the Breakfast Club. I don't know about y'all, but I love the Breakfast Club. I think it's awesome. So you're going to visualize a 5 on the participation scale there. And also I recycled this one as well from Amy and Kristen. So if you're on, I'm giving you guys kudos. So thank you so much. Engage in the chat, turn on your video if you can. If you're eating and you don't want to eat on the screen, don't worry about it, whatever. Have fun in this next hour. This is just colleagues sharing with colleagues. So I love this setup, it's awesome. We are connecting everything back to John Hattie's influences and thinking about the mind frames training that we did back in September and all of those things that we're thinking about, whether it's in your classroom or it's at a distance. And so today we're talking about teacher clarity, which is a 0.75, pretty high effect size for students. Here's learning intention number 1. I am learning how to increase clarity in distance learning, but really this is about increasing clarity all over, not just in distance learning, and any of those tips and tricks that you can use to help our fellow teachers in the classrooms. So when we were doing the teacher clarity, they broke it down into 4 different things: clarity of organization, clarity of explanation, clarity of examples and guided practice, and clarity of assessment and student learning. And when, actually, I don't know if Kelly is on or not, but Kelly and I were having this conversation. Kelly George is back at my service unit. And I said, teacher clarity is this big, grandiose thing. It doesn't stand alone. And then we just started naming off all of the different things that go into teacher clarity: formative assessment, summative assessment, different types of examples, learning progressions, targets, how I'm explaining things. And I looked at her and I went, oh my gosh, there's so much there. So when you put teacher clarity in 20 minutes and then another diving deeper in 20 minutes, we're just going to scratch the surface. That's just all there is to it. Right, Michelle? Yeah, we are. We're just going to scratch the surface. I'm going to go into just these 4 things. So clarity of organization, your lesson tasks and your assignments and your activities, one idea is for them all to include the links to the learning intentions and the success criteria. Super simple. A lot of us have home pages. A lot of us have our things posted, and we just put those right in there. For instance, this is just a slide, and this slide can then just become a little piece of a slide if I want it to. For instance, I have my clarity of organization here. So this is my part of my learning intention right on my slide, or I can have it posted there. I could also have it posted right on the sidebar. Here's my learning target. I'm learning to use code to draw and design cool pictures. And their task is an artist lab. And then here's my success criteria. And then even on our digital age pedagogy and our one-pagers, my learning intention and target is right here up at the top. And here's a self-check that I have right on it. So all of those things can help you be organized. Another way that we can stay organized is also having our just our home pages, a morning meeting, and we can have our tasks and assignments and activities all right in one spot. And so that helps with that teacher clarity piece. Here's one from, I think this, I don't know, it's probably from a Bitmoji classroom. Here's one just off of a hyperdoc that the students are going through. Here's another one that's a very elaborate Bitmoji classroom. And if you are on Facebook and you see these, people are getting all sorts of stuff going on with the Bitmoji classrooms and your home pages. It's amazing. They're all over the place. By the way, I dropped off of Facebook for my personal account, but I added another one in for my business account, and all I have is Bitmoji and tech tools. Oh, and a few crafts there too. So anyway, that is the first one with clarity of organization. The second one is clarity of explanation. I looked at this in two different ways. The first one is explanation of how you're explaining things to the students. And we know that there's tons of tech tools out there that we can use, like we can use Edpuzzle, we can use any of our screencasting tools, any of those things that we can use with that explanation to the student. And we also know that we want to keep it short. 10 minutes is about as long as we need it to be, and just helping those teachers realize that, oh, we have a ton to say, but we don't need to expose upon it. Remember, shorter trumps longer, and interactive trumps sitting back and watching too. So short articles like the Khan Academy and all of those things. But the other two that I have on this slide are actually planning tools for your teachers and planning tools for you as you're thinking about how I would get that clarity of explanation. The first one is a think along, and those are linked. I'm not sure. I'll just click on that one. The first one's a think along. This comes from the Distance Learning Playbook. And really, it's a planning tool for you to be thinking through, what's my strategy and skill? What's the most important thing that I need my students to know while we're synchronous? Or even, what do I need them to get when they're asynchronous? How am I going to demonstrate that to them? What are the analogies that I can use? So this is a planning tool for you that you can use. And then the other one is another planning tool, but it's another one of Hattie's strategies. It's called Microteaching, and Microteaching has a 0.88 effect size. So it's one of those higher effect sizes. And basically what you're doing there is you are just going to do a short lesson, you're going to record it, and you're going to ask for feedback from other teachers. This is a huge step for some of our teachers, but I feel like us at the service units, we can, or at the NDEU, or as an instructional coach or administrator, we can help that teacher with that feedback. And I know that teachers are asking so much, they're being asked so much, but for them to be super effective, thinking about that micro teaching piece could be one of those ahas for them. So thinking about, first was organization, second was explanation, and the next one is lots of examples. So sometimes we don't think we have time for all those examples, right? But showing the students that this is what your end goal is. Like if I want them to do a science fair board or something that they need to produce, showing them the picture of what they need to produce isn't giving away the final answer. It's not giving away the secret. It's making it clearer, clearer, clearer. And there is no way that you can have too much teacher clarity, in my opinion. This next one is, hey, if I want them to do this essay, here is exactly what I want it to do. They're free to choose their subject. They're free to choose lots of those other things, but I need to be very explicit in those examples. So the first one was organization. The second one was explanation. The third one was examples. And the last one is about assessment. And that's about formative assessment and those just really quick assessments that you can be doing. Low stress examples like exit tickets, using Nearpod. Michelle, we were talking about that before, or Pear Deck, using Flipgrid, but low level things that students can show you what they know. So the four things that we talked about were clarity of organization, clarity of explanation, clarity of examples and assessment. So my first learning intention was, and there was my success criteria. Would you just take 30 seconds to maybe a minute and just put in the chat something that resonated with you? What resonated with you on those first ones? One of the things when you're presenting, you can't see the chat. It just drives me nuts. So I love learning from my colleagues.
I'll try to read those out as stuff comes
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
And I would say, maybe it's too general, but when you started to talk about just the breadth of places in which you need to be clear, I think that's a big aha in the start of all this, is to just think about all the places that can become troublesome for our remote learners, and we have to be intentional about having an explanation that pairs with each of those possible pitfalls. Here we go. Okay, Otis Pierce, you can never be too clear. I agree. Michelle, you have to plan. Microteaching from Craig Hicks. McKinsey shares examples in a visual format. You can never be too clear. Exemplars. Thank you, Michelle. Explain everything with an emphasis on everything from Samantha Pavelka. It isn't just the lesson, right?
That's so true. That is so true.
Patty Finney, teachers really need to be clear about why they are doing specific activities lessons in their classroom.
For sure. All right. Let's go to the next one. The next learning intention in this first 20 minutes is I am learning about it's about the connection of learning intentions and success criteria. This probably is going to be a primer for most of the people on this Zoom. However, I went back and forth. I said, am I going to put this in or am I not going to put this in? I'm going to put the success criteria right up at the front. I can phrase the learning intentions in a student-friendly language. And I'm going to go over that in a minute. I can tie all the tasks and activities back toward the learning intentions. I can inform students of what they are to know and be able to do at the end of the lessons. You know, I know this is teaching 101 for us, but I feel like sometimes we get lost in the tech tools. We get lost in the stuff. We get lost in making it entertaining and engaging, that we lose some of the focus about what this really means. So remember that conversation that I said that I had with Kelly Georges? It was like, all of this stuff is included. So here's my 10,000-foot view. It starts with the standards, what is the learning, right? And then it goes to learning progressions, like how am I going to order that learning? Sometimes it's the textbook that you use. Sometimes you have to go find all this stuff. Sometimes it doesn't make sense the way the textbook said you should do it. And you're like, no, my kids need this. My kids need this. I need to do something else. Then it's the learning intentions. What am I learning? What are the targets and the success criteria? How will I know that they learned it? We can't do it all. So we're just going to focus on the learning intentions and the success criteria right now. So here are those things. So learning intentions, otherwise known as your targets. And I want you to think about not just what the teachers are telling the students when they're teaching the class, but if you're in a professional development role, or you're in a coach role, or you're in a consultant role, or an administrator role, I want you to think about what helps you stay on track. What helps you narrow the focus and what helps you plan? For instance, today there was an email that said, hey, are you available December 4th? And I'm like, yep, I already have it on my calendar. We're supposed to do PLCs. I'd love you to do a switch, and I want you to do Zoom tips and tricks for the entire staff K-12 in an hour and a half. All right, fine. And now my brain is like moving. What are the learning intentions for this Zoom tips and tricks in an hour and a half? What do they already know? How do I progress those things? So I'm going to go through exactly what I'm thinking about with these learning intentions in the same way that I'm going to share back some questions to the administrator. What's the intention of this hour and a half? So in a classroom, here's 3 examples. I'm learning that an electric charge can be positive or negative. I'm learning how to use information that supports an opinion. I'm learning how to solve problems involving electrical potential difference. Okay, I use some science ones in there, not just some ELA or some tech ones. But here's the thing, if you notice, it's in student-friendly language, and it's not just the standard, because our standards need to be unpacked. They have to be unpacked. So We need to make sure that it's student friendly all the time. So here's what the success criteria looks for some of those. Oh, success criteria, another one that's a 0.88. So that's why this is titled, the next one is teacher clarity doesn't stand alone, right? It all has in there. So here's your success criteria. I'm learning how to solve those problems involving electric potential difference. And to be able to fulfill that intention, it's I can determine values for electric potential difference in complex situations, and I can recall the formula for that electric potential difference. Boy, that's science. That's like not in my alley, but aren't you proud of me? I used a science reference there. Okay. I'm learning how to use information that supports an opinion. That's another one. They have to be able to find factual information in a text and be able to tell the difference between a fact and an opinion. And they can review the information to make sure that that opinion is valid. And here's the last one. I'm learning that electric charge can be positive or negative. They have to be able to recognize positive and negative charges and know the difference between those. So your learning intentions and your success criteria can be synchronous or asynchronous. This one I really like. This one has the tasks in the middle of it, and you can see the success criteria there as well. This one, asynchronous, right? So still today I'm doing this so that I can do this, and I know I got it when. Here's another synchronous and asynchronous, and here is our success criteria. I'm hoping that we got that. I'm going to turn it over back to Andrew so he can do whatever we need to do to get us going into breakouts. Remember, I'm going to reference that conversation again with Kelly Georges. It's like teacher clarity, yes, it has a 0.88, but you can't have teacher clarity unless you know what it is that what the learning is. You got to know what the standards are, right? But again, when I said about the learning intentions and the what am I learning, it's not about just posting the standard or posting the number. I will tell you that there is not one student out there that knows what 6.2.3a is. They don't. And I don't have that memorized. And I don't even think our teachers have those memorized. And so when you see those 6.6.2a or whatever, I don't even know if that's a right standard or not. I just made it up. But when you have that, that might be a reference for the teacher, but that's a compliance thing. When you see standards posted like that, by the way, here's my dog. She wanted to say hi to you. Okay, you need to go back out. Brian, can you call the dog? Sorry. Anyway, so standards have to start it. And then we need to be thinking about our learning progressions. And I alluded to this a little bit, but sometimes your textbooks lay those out for you, right? Sometimes your everything will be laid out for you, but sometimes we're thinking, that's not exactly where I want to go. And then learning intentions and success criteria. So we're going to think about, oh, I wanted this one too, relevancy. Why am I learning this? Where does this connect? And so I want to make sure that we go through all of those things together. I'm going to fly through the rest of these slides, but I want you to know that this template is linked right here. And it looks just like this. It came from the Distance Learning Playbook. And when you get the slides, actually, I could probably just throw this link in. Let me do that. Let me just throw this in the chat right here. So if you want it, to make notes on it.
While you're doing that, I'm going to share. Eileen had the opportunity to go to 2 days of the Core 1 training on this topic. And so I love the resources you have. They're terrific.
Thank you. Thanks. So when I was thinking about filing this flight plan, right? So the first thing that pilots do is they file their flight plan. Educators, they file that flight plan, which is called a lesson plan. And there's so many things that go in the background. And when you're really focusing on teacher clarity and you're really focusing on what it is that I want that concise lesson to be, there's a lot of things that go on in the background. So this could be a tool that you can use to plan out any of your professional learning. This could be a tool that you can share with a teacher when they're thinking about aligning their curriculum. It could be a a template to fill out when they're thinking about what they're going to do to plan the next time. You all are super knowledgeable professionals. You'll find something to do with this. So the first thing you're thinking about is, what are the concepts and skills from the standards? Their standards move to your targets. The standards don't stand alone. The standards have to be unpacked like we know, and they have to move towards your target. And then we have to think about, what's that logical flow of ideas? Have any of you ever opened up your textbook and said, well, my kids don't understand this or this, even though the learning target is about ions, maybe they don't have any precursor information. And I have to back up, and I've got to teach some of that too. It might not be in the book, but I've got to think about what it is that I know about my students and what are the learning progressions that they need. When you're thinking about this, focus only on like a few weeks at a time. Think about a little snippet of information. Think about how you're going to align your tasks and activities with learning intentions. Okay, you guys, give me a thumbs up or put it in the chat. How many of us have walked into classrooms and we have teachers, and what they have posted is a whole bunch of activities, right? You can use a whole bunch of activities, and well-meaning activities, very well thought out activities, excellent, engaging activities. I am not taking anything away from that, but there's no connection back to my learning intentions or my standards. It just ends up being activity after activity after activity, and there's no connection to get to that end goal. So also thinking about what that formative assessment is, checking for understanding, and doing something with the data. Remember, I talked a little bit at the first part about the exit tickets. Use those exit tickets as your entrance tickets the next day. Think about what today is brought to you by what you didn't get yesterday. So I might have this well thought out plan, but I might need to back up a little bit because my exit ticket said they didn't get it, and I'm not going to get to my teacher clarity if I don't get this stuff. Thinking about, what are those instructional materials that are useful? So I talked a little bit about, the book, right? We have these fabulous high quality instructional materials, or even instructional materials that might not be high quality, right? But we have some of those pieces, those materials that we're using. And think about which pieces are going to be the best for you for this learning intention or for this goal. Thinking about, what are your tools that you're going to determine those mastery, what are those summatives and those formatives. This is super important in today's day and age, the vocabulary tools that we have. And then we have those supplemental supports for students. So when we're thinking about it through this whole sheet, you may already use something very, very similar to this, but all of this stuff goes into that teacher clarity. So when I think about, how clear am I going to be, I need to be thinking about, what am I learning today? Why am I learning it? And how will I know I learned it? Those are those three hinge point questions that we're thinking about. Okay, I'm going to stop for a minute, and I want to know what's sparking in your thoughts right now. Some of this is old stuff, some of it isn't. So you can come off mute, or you can use the chat.
So Eileen, I know that we did a lot of work towards learning intentions when the new social studies standards came out.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy task for educators to take that indicator of the standard and think about what those progression steps will be. That's kind of a task that I don't think many educators have ever really been taught to do.
I'm really glad you said that, because one of the things in the presentation was, we actually we spent probably 2 hours on learning intentions, and the thing that I walked away was, you sit down and you write down what it is that I want them to learn today, right? And then you brainstorm everything that they have to know in order to get that one done, and then you make yourself a checklist. Have I taught that, or do they know it? Do I need to do a formative assessment on that? Have I taught that one, or do they need to know it? I remember also, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, we did an Anita Archer training at ESU3, and she actually pulled the standards out for writing. And she she had us go through those writing standards and say, okay, this is the end goal. The standard's the end goal. What's my path? What's my progression to get to the end goal? And it was super, it was just very enlightening for me to do that. What else? Anything else sparking you right now? All right, I'm going to go on then, okay? Well, I had to play with some Giphies because Amy and Kristen challenged me in the first one because they had such great engagement things. I have just been playing so well, but I wanted to insert this idea about relevance because it is learning intentions and success criteria that's going to get to the clarity. But without relevance, without students really understanding the why behind it, it's going to fall flat. They have to be able to have a framework to hang something on in order to attach that learning to happen. So there's my Gippy slides. I think, Andrew, you should be saying, Eileen, I'm proud of you because, right? There they are. Anyway, okay, so
Nice.
I liked this chart. Go ahead, Andrew.
Eileen, I'm so proud of you. You did a good job with the Jiffy gifts.
I know, Gippies, right. Okay, on this slide, I'm going to open up this blank template, but I like this, the way to share this out. I didn't make this up. I borrowed this from somebody, probably from the Playbook, but the learning intentions, actually, they break down learning intentions in content, language, and social. We're not getting into all of those different things, but there's multiple different facets of different learning intentions. What's the content that I'm going to teach? What are some of those language pieces that I need to teach about? And what's the social aspects of those? They talk about the success criteria and then the relevance and the why. And a lot of times in today's day and age, we might have to engage in the conversation of the why before we can engage in the conversation of the what or even the how. If we go to remote, I'll remote again. This relevance thing is so important and should take front stage. So there is a blank template here for you if you'd like it. I don't know if I created it or I borrowed it, but I might have to give you edit access. We'll see what happens. If somebody test it when they get it, and if not, I'll open it up. So, okay. So the other thing that I really want you to think about is, again, you cannot have enough teacher clarity and communication of the expectations and what those students need to know. And I see Mackenzie put in there that we always start with the end in mind. And so if you're starting at the top of this stair step and you're working your way backwards, that's really one of those things that will give you a ton. So I want to talk a little bit about relevancy. Andrew, how much time do I have? About 5 minutes?
Got about 8 minutes. So
okay, perfect. So I'm going to try to go 5 because I still want to have a little bit of a conversation about relevancy. So you know when you go to a training, so this has been great for solidifying my knowledge because you go to a training and sometimes you put it away, right? So I would encourage everybody to pull out whatever you can about relevancy because in our world, in our pandemic, I think this is the word that we need to help teachers with. And first, they're learning all sorts of things about remote learning, but that the relevancy really is also about relationships. If my students, if you on this Zoom aren't feeling like this is relevant, then the relationship could be broken a little bit because you've spent your time and kids have spent their time and parents have made sure that kids are getting on Zoom or parents have made sure that things are doing it. And if it's not relevant, then it's a relationship breaking thing. I'm going to give you another example. My daughter is in the accelerated nursing program at Methodist Hospital. She is in a class called pharmacology and pathology or something. I don't know. It's science. Yeah, anyway, but she sat at our island and she was filling out, now she's 24 years old and she is filling out a crossword puzzle on something that she needed to learn about, maybe it was vocabulary. And She looked at me and she said, Mom, what in the heck does filling out a crossword puzzle have to do with me being a nurse? It was the clearest example of relevancy that I have ever seen in my life. And she did not do so well on the test. And she went to her professor and she said, having to spend 25 minutes on this crossword puzzle that kept not letting her back in because it was an electronic crossword puzzle did not help me do well on the test. And I want my money back is basically what she said. She keeps equating this to, I'm spending $50,000 on nursing school and I do not want that crossword. Debbie, you're right. It's better than a word find, but it didn't suffice the learning intention or the success criteria for what that student needed. So I agree, it is better, but the last one she did was a jumble. So when we're thinking about relevancy, we're thinking about starting with the why. It's that whole Simon Sinek. It's everything that we know about relevancy and knowing why we're doing certain things. We go to the why, then the how, and then the what. So I contend that relevancy should be playing first bill on this one. This one's just, oh, here, let me go through there. Okay, what am I learning today? It's the daily intention, right? Why am I learning about it? It's the glue that has gotten us all together. And how will I know that I learned it? Well, you got it, dude, on that. Some of the reasons that we talk about relevancy is that students need to know that what I'm learning is going to help me change the world. I'm going to make a connection of what I'm learning with ions and neutrons and protons so I can use it outside of the school building and I can go help change the world. I'm inspired to go do something. Another one, relevancy, like asking the students, what do you want to learn today? What do you want to learn about? And I'm going to learn about this so it will help me to do this. The other idea about relevancy is having something to contribute to the society. Like I am standing around at Christmas and your students are there and we're all wearing masks, of course, and we're social distanced, I'm sure, but we're having a conversation about the Constitution, right? And I learned about the Constitution this semester in my government class, and my grandma says to me, wow, you are really smart. And seriously, that is relevance. I learned this so that I can contribute to society, and I can also show that I've got some moxie, right? And we want to impress people. We want to be a learned society. So I feel like teacher relevancy has to do with connections and relationships and learning. And I don't think that you can even have teacher clarity without having that teacher relevancy there as well. So I want to go back to one other slide here. Let me just go back. Close your eyes. I'm going back. Ooh, I was like dancing there. Okay. So this clarity in the 10,000-foot view. What's my time, Andrew? 2 minutes? Okay. This is what I want to do. Let's do this in the chat. What stood out for you the most? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to voice if you want to come off mute? What do you think? Besides a crossword is better than a word find. And you are right, Debbie, but yeah. Oh, I got to say this too. My daughter, who I was flashcards, right? Flashcards do help. Flashcards help. All through high school, wouldn't do a flashcard. All through college, wouldn't do a flashcard. Asked me for flashcards last week. It's awesome. So it's important to unpack the standards and ensure those progressions. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Derek.
This is Jen. This is Jen McNally. I just wanted to get on here and this is my first lunch bunch, and that was incredible. Oh. I mean, I don't teach, but I just loved. I think you can connect all the what, how, and whys to so many things, and so thank you so much for such a great presentation.
Absolutely, thanks, Jen. Thanks. So, last thoughts about success criteria. Mackenzie, do you want to say last thoughts about success criteria, or do you want me to?
No, I was kind of curious if we had to pick your brain for some of those biggies that you just really value. What would that be?
I think overall, I think posting the success criteria, I think it's this slide right here. I think it's this one. Let me go back here. This makes me, okay, I'm a logical sequential person and I like to be able to see things in order. And I love this slide because I want to know how I'm going to be successful. I want to know what I need to learn. I need to know, I also want to know if when I get to the 10-minute or the 30-minute Zoom, that if I already know it, how can I take it deeper, right? Because I might have in mind some of those success criteria things, but posting it, making sure that all of the students know those certain things, all of the students know what it is that will make them that knowledgeable, learned student. It just, to me, it has so much power.
That is so not fair. When the breakout rooms end, I have to stop talking. And Eileen gets to finish a sentence.
That's pretty good. I didn't even think about that.
Michelle, you're in charge of the discussion.
Yeah.
That means I can finish the other half of my slides I didn't get to.
Yes, please. All right, let me go to the discussion.
Get it? We're going to talk about it? Oh, okay, I'm done. I'm done. That was really bad. All right, I'm going to do some breakout groups. I'm going to encourage people to use can we put the conversation starter link in the slides while I get the breakout rooms going?
I will, right here. This is the time that we break us all into random groups and we have some solidifying conversations about what we just learned. I would love to go to a room as well with other people that learned from Michelle because I saw her slide deck. It was awesome.
I'm going to share a couple other things that we can maybe continue to connect on. So there's been a really amazing effort in bringing together the many talents of our folks across the ESU network in support of this NERCSA ESU remote learning support that really is about 2 weeks away from being finalized. It's going to be pretty robust in terms of having resources for admin, parents, teachers, etc. And if you want to learn more about that initiative, you can check it out on our podcast. The most recent episode of the podcast delves into Edpuzzle and a good chat with their CEO and co-founder, Quim Sabria. And his story is awesome. He's a math teacher, and now he's lived in Barcelona, taught math in Barcelona, and now he lives in California, is running this tech company. And what's the story that takes you from one to the next? So he tells a little bit about that and gives us some insights about how that tool is being used intentionally for a number of different remote purposes. So it's cool. Check that out. We've also, in our efforts to increase our collaboration, have started the Friday Love and Learn. So if you get a chance, you should totally try to end your week with us as we ask different people from around our ESU network, what's one thing you loved from this week? What's one thing you learned from this week? And if it sounds a little bit cheesy to you, you obviously haven't tuned into this yet, because it has been so uplifting and inspiring to hear positive things on social media and to have folks go, no, this week, this was amazing. This was awesome. I appreciated that. I'm looking forward to this. And it really is cool to give people that space. So tune in today. Today's Friday. Chris Good and Laura and Patty are all going to join us. So we're excited. You can join our group at bit.ly/partners. Oh, it's wrong. Typo. Partners in PL. And you can join our group. It's also on our Facebook page for the ESUCC, but really looking forward to the Love and Learn later today. And cannot say enough and give enough thanks to Michelle and to Eileen for all of your help efforts. Nice job. Yeah, let's do one of those. Round of applause. Lunch bunch. Appreciate
So much fun.
Thank you so much. It is 1:01. So we've kind of reached the end of our time. So thanks for everything. And we will see you Monday for teacher credibility. So Thank you.
See you Monday.
Yep.